Colleagues, please be seated. We're about to start. Dear colleagues, good morning. There was a slight problem with registration. That is why we're delayed. Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, although we are at the end of June, today I will talk to you about May. May is more than just the month of spring for Europe. It is a month of foundations and milestones. In May 1945, hope returned after the war. In May 1948, the idea of European unity was born at the Hague Congress. In May 1949, the Council of Europe was founded. Decades later, this May came with a different tone. On that day, 9 European prime ministers signed a joint letter expressing concerns about the interpretation of the European Convention. This should not be seen through a lens of confrontation, but rather as a call for dialogue and reflection. When the same date in the past brought decisions that strengthen rights, today it might, if we are careful, open space for discussion and understanding. The history of May, dear colleagues, is a history of values, and it calls on us to defend them, not only when they serve us, but also when they challenge us. I understand the reasoning that led the prime ministers to make this joint public statement. Even we do not like or agree with a decision delivered by the European Court of Human Rights, disagreement must not become a pretext to undermine the very institution that renders those decisions. I'm fully aware of the problems caused in many countries by uncontrolled migration, including challenges that affect long-standing social balances. My own country, Greece, faced it first. I personally chaired the Migration Committee for 2 years, and I understand all kinds of concerns. But we as politicians must follow the difficult path to find solutions. Accusing the court is the easy way, and it is contrary to our principles and ethics. Yet, in difficult times, disagreement must not become a pretext to undermine the very institution that renders those decisions. History has shown us that when political power interferes with justice, it is democracy that pays the price. I do not believe that prime ministers seek such interference. If this letter expresses a need for institutional discussion, let us welcome it. Yet we must also acknowledge a growing tendency among member states to underestimate or even ignore the Council of Europe. This is not a personal comment. We all share responsibilities. Even my own country has almost 60 unexecuted judgments from the court. Others, unfortunately, have thousands. You all know that the Committee of Ministers is represented on a daily basis by the esteemed ambassadors who attend our sessions, and I want to thank them for the productive dialogue we have had since my first day of my presidency. And I know that they work tirelessly and with dedication, serving the historic diplomatic mission of this Council for many years. Once a year, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of our countries are called upon to meet for a few hours. This meeting is largely symbolic. This year's annual meeting of foreign ministers took place in Luxembourg. Out of 46 ministers, only 16, mostly deputy ministers, were present, just 1/3. Is that not a warning sign? We are all aware of Secretary General Alain Berset's initiative for the Pact for Democracy. In this context, I call on member states to contribute ideas, but these ideas should be debated properly within this assembly and within the Committee of Ministers. Otherwise, flash interventions may attract attention, but they do not help safeguard the independence of the court. If we want the Council to remain a living institution, we must launch a public information campaign to our parliaments, to our universities, to our youth. We must explain why this institution is essential to the very meaning of democracy. Because, dear colleagues, democracy without checks and balances is no longer democracy. I therefore call on the new president of the court, to whom I extend my congratulations on his election, to respond positively to the challenges of our time and to strengthen the court's authority in the way judges know best, through reasoned judgment, legal consistency, and moral independence. We here, dear colleagues, have the power to represent our people. With that power, we elect the judges of the Court of Human Rights. With that power, we elect our Secretary General of the Council of Europe, the Deputy Secretary General, the Secretary General of our Assembly, and the Commissioner for Human Rights. We entrust them with full authority to act, not as directed by us individually, but as guided by the institutional framework of the Council of Europe, by the European Convention on Human Rights, and the other treaties we have collectively agreed upon. Any suspicion that the separation of powers could be eroded through this organization must be dispelled. The independence of the judiciary, the separation of powers, principles born in the country that hosts us, France, shall not be compromised. The Council was not born from the ashes of war to serve individual political agendas for any one of us. It was born to uphold the European vision of peace and justice. And our vision usually becomes reality. Do you remember, dear colleagues, those who were laughing against this assembly 3 years ago when from this very hemicycle came the idea of creating an international tribunal for the crime of aggression against Ukraine? Today, we are as close as we have never been to creating such a tribunal within the Council of Europe, and I wish to reiterate my call to the Committee of Ministers and the Secretary General to make the final steps towards its establishment and ensure that history is once again made here in Strasbourg. In this week is that we will welcome President Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine, who will address our Assembly on Wednesday evening according to the latest information. At the end of his speech, President Zelensky will take questions from members, a sign of democratic engagement and mutual respect. Another vision of the world, dear colleagues, the hope for peace in the Middle East, a vision we have shared for decades, is not progressing. The war continues, more cruel and more indiscriminate, with tens of thousands of innocent civilians already dead, defying the values we are here to defend. And in the recent days, global security and peace is being threatened with escalation of the conflict in the Middle East and the humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza. Civilians are paying the price of this cruelty in Gaza, in Israel, in Iran. But let us not surrender. Though disappointment often follows our visions and actions, we must continue our efforts tirelessly, because we are the only institution globally to work exclusively on democracy. Not the power of guns or money, but the people. And our guide for 75 years now is the Human Rights Convention, written by statesmen bigger than history, in times less prosperous than ours. Thank you. Let's go to work now. Before I move on to our first item, I remind the Assembly that members who have not submitted an annual declaration of interest are required to start any intervention with an oral declaration of interest under paragraph 20 of the Code of Conduct for members of the Parliamentary Assembly. Dear colleagues, the first item on the agenda is the examination of credentials of new members. The names of the members are in document 16-203. If no credentials are challenged, the credentials will be ratified. Are any credentials challenged? The credentials are ratified. I welcome the new German delegation to the Assembly, whose credentials have just been ratified. I understand that some procedures are ongoing at the national level. I trust that this process will be completed in reasonable time in accordance with all democratic international standards. The next item on the agenda is the election of vice presidents at the Assembly in respect of Cyprus, Bulgaria, and Germany. Document 2025-02. The three candidates are Mr. Nikos Tornaritis from the Cypriot delegation, Mrs. Denitsa Satseva from the Bulgarian delegation, and Mr. Knut Abraham from the German delegation. If there is no request for a vote, Mr. Tornaritis, Mrs. Satseva, and Mr. Abraham will be declared elected. I want to congratulate our vice chairs. The next item on the agenda is changes in the membership of committees. The candidatures for the general committees of the Assembly have been published as document commissions 05-2025 and addendum 1. Are these proposals approved? Thank you. Approved. Before we examine the draft agenda, the Assembly needs to consider requests for debates under the Agenda and Current Affairs procedure. The Bureau, dear colleagues, has received the following request. Urgent procedure debate requested by the Committee on Equality and Non-Discrimination under the title Women's Rights in Europe, Progress and Challenges. Urgent procedure debate requested by the Committee on Social Affairs, Health and Sustainable Development under the title Halting the Genocide in Gaza, the Council of Europe must act now. Urgent procedure debate requested by the Committee on Political Affairs and Democracy under the title The Urgent Need to Put an End to the War in Gaza. Current affairs debates requested by the ALDE political group, a call for the immediate release of persons facing politically motivated persecution in Georgia. Current affairs debate requested by Christophe Lacroix from Belgium, supported by 21 members of the Assembly, under the title Attempts to Undermine the European Convention on Human Rights and to Attack the Independence and Impartiality of the European Court of Human Rights through Political Interference. Dear colleagues, urgent procedure debate requested by the political groups Global Peace, Under Threat, Halting the Humanitarian Catastrophe in Gaza and Addressing the Wider Conflict in the Middle East, and current affairs debate requested by the political groups under the title The European Court of Human Rights, Rising to the Challenges of Our Times. At its meeting this morning, the Bureau decided to recommend to the Assembly to hold two urgent procedures debates on women's rights in Europe, progress and challenges, and global peace under threat, halting the humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza and addressing the wider conflict in the Middle East, and two current affair debates on a call for the immediate release of persons facing politically motivated persecution in Georgia, and the European Court of Human Rights rising to the challenges of our times. Is that agreed? Yes, thank you. So, as it is obvious, the Bureau's recommendation is accepted. The current affairs debate on the European Court of Human Rights rising to the challenges of our times will take place tomorrow morning. The urgent procedure debate on global peace under threat, halting the humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza and addressing the wider conflict in the Middle East will take place on Wednesday afternoon. The urgent procedure debate on women's rights in Europe, progress and challenges will take place on Thursday afternoon. The current affairs debate on a call for the immediate release of persons facing politically motivated persecution in Georgia will also take place on Thursday afternoon. So the next item of business is the adoption of the agenda for the third part of the 2025 ordinary session. The draft agenda submitted for the Assembly's approval was adopted by the Bureau this morning. I remind you that we have also agreed to hold two urgent procedure debates and two current affairs debates. I also informed the Assembly that the Bureau agreed this morning that speaking times for the debates will hold on Tuesday, and for those debates on Wednesday afternoon must be reduced to 2 minutes. Is the draft agenda agreed to? Thank you, it is agreed. The minutes of the Standing Committee, which met in Malta on the 23rd of May 2025, have been distributed. The Assembly takes note of these minutes. See no objections. Now we come to the joint debate on the progress report of the Bureau and the Standing Committee. The progress report will be presented by Mr. Frank Svabe. With this, we will consider the report by the ad hoc committee of the Bureau and observation of the parliamentary elections in Albania. They took place on the 11th of May. The report on election observation will be presented by Mrs. Luz Martinez Eijo on behalf of the rapporteur, Mr. Simon Billy. We will suspend this item at 12:30 to enable the prize award ceremony for the Vigdís Prize for Women's Empowerment. The debate will continue then at 4:30 p.m. this afternoon. I call Mr. Frank Svabe, the leader of the Socialists, Greens and Democrats, to present the first report on behalf of the Bureau. Dear Frank, you have 7 minutes now and 3 minutes at the end to reply to the debate. You have the floor.
No. So I'm a little bit colorblind, so I don't see the difference. Mr. President, thank you very much for your introductory speech. Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to present the progress report on the activities of the Assembly's Bureau and Standing Committee from April 11th to June 22nd of 2025. Let me begin with our key meetings. The Bureau convened in Strasbourg and Valletta, where we set the agenda for the upcoming part session and addressed urgent issues facing Europe today. We responded to requests for current affairs debates, including the need to ensure the survival of Radio-Free Europe. Very small amount of money needed, but a very big outcome. So we should do everything to support the survival of Radio-Free Europe. And the vital role of parliamentarians in safeguarding investment in human rights and democracy, especially as military spending rises. Election observation remains a cornerstone of our democratic mission. Over the past months, we organized and deployed observation missions to Albania's parliamentary and Poland's presidential elections. Looking ahead, we had set plans to observe Moldova's parliamentary elections in September. We have also advanced several special initiatives. The Bureau approved a new child safeguarding policy to protect children in all Assembly activities. We are moving forward with the selection of candidates for the Vigdís Prize for Women's Empowerment, whose laureate will be announced in a few minutes. And the Václav Havel Human Rights Prize, supporting those who champion human rights and gender equality. International engagement has also been a priority. Our representatives participated in the European Conference of Electoral Management Bodies in Vilnius, the European Dialogue on Internet Governance, and the Conference on Missing Migrants. We are also preparing to send a delegation to the European Holocaust Memorial Day for Roma and Sinti at Auschwitz-Birkenau, reaffirming our commitment to re-embrace and justice. Looking ahead, the Bureau and Standing Committee will meet in Paris, Strasbourg, and Chisinau. The Assembly will also play an active role in the World Forum for Democracy this November, helping to shape the future of democratic governments in Europe. Allow me now to highlight some of our current challenges. Dear colleagues, furthermore, underlining that the Convention is a treasure of our organization and the treasure of human rights in Europe, and underlining again that the European Court of Human Rights is the heart of the Council of Europe, and we have to do whatever we do. If we don't do more, we have to protect the Convention and we have to protect the court. That is what we have to do. And for sure, it's allowed to send letters, to write letters. We don't know really to whom people send letters, but it's allowed to have a debate in public, and it's allowed to look for some other countries to ask them to sign letters as well. And I understand that in some member countries, we have not an easy debate about migration. And there are several cases where it's not easy to the public to explain that even when there's a kind of criminal, you have to respect fundamental human rights. And I understand that there is a kind of misuse from some countries like Russia and Belarus to use migrants to organize a kind of hybrid war and attack against other countries. But we are the Council of Europe, and we act in the sense of human rights. Human rights are valid. They are valid for all humans, wherever they are, whatever they did, and wherever and in which sense they ever are misused, even for serious criminals. And that's what we have to do, and that's what we have to protect, and that's why the world understands what we are doing and why we are needed. And again, discussions are possible, but finally we have to make clear we have a convention, and I don't see any kind of political movement to change this convention. Maybe those who wants to do it have to read in the papers and to inform what would be the necessary to do it. So because of this, I ask each and everyone who write letters to be careful and to think what could be the result of writing such letters. Dear colleagues, the Council of Europe is in a historical situation, at the crossroads. We are at the crossroads, but how we should not be at the crossroads if the world is at the crossroads, if Europe is at the crossroads. The Council of Europe is an organization of dialogue. It's very good to sit here together with all of you and to speak about the future of this organization, but we have various dialogue forums in Europe. There is a new one around the European Union with almost the same membership like in the Council of Europe. This is a possibility to have a dialogue. The dialogue is important, but what is the core of our organization and what we can do more than others is to protect human rights, democracy, and the rule of law. We are the guardian of those values and rules, and this is what we always have to know and what we always have to make clear to those countries who want to undermine our organization with our rules and our values. And the question is how we proceed with such countries. For sure, we want to keep each and everyone on board because we care for the people who live in the countries. But if the price would be to keep each and everyone on board, to lose the human rights, the democracy, and the rule of law, our instruments, even for the other countries who are committed to our values, then I would say the price is too high, and this is something we have to discuss. This week, I think it's an honor for us that President Zelensky will be here and to address us, and that he's prepared to get maybe as well critical questions. I think it's good. It's a sign of a real Democrat to do this. And it's a good sign that this week, again, we do everything to support our Ukrainian friends who had a really horrible shelling this night again. So it is good that we are making an important step on implementing the tribunal, and it's good that we deal, for instance, with the question of kidnapping of children. So I really want to say, although it's difficult after so many years of war to concentrate and to focus, we are still very focused on Ukraine and to support them wherever we can do it. Slava Ukraini.
Thank you, Frank. I call now Ms. Martinez Seijo to present the report, the second report. You have 5 minutes.
Estimado presidente, estimados colegas, tengo el gusto de presentar el informe sobre la observación de las elecciones parlamentarias en Albania en nombre del señor Simonevili, jefe de la delegación y autor del texto, quien no puede estar presente hoy. Desde 2023, Albania participa en el diálogo posterior al monitoring con la Asamblea Parlamentaria del Consejo de Europa, lo que implica el compromiso de invitar a la Asamblea a observar sus procesos electorales. Nuestra delegación estuvo compuesta por 22 parlamentarios, incluido el ponente de la Comisión de Seguimiento de la Asamblea, un representante de la Comisión de Venecia y 3 miembros de personal a quienes agradecemos sinceramente su labor. Realizamos una misión preelectoral de 2 días en Tirana, aproximadamente un mes antes de las elecciones, para evaluar la campaña y el contexto político general. Esta misión se llevó a cabo en el marco de una misión internacional de observación electoral junto con delegaciones de la OSCE, el Parlamento Europeo y la ODIHR. Agradecemos a las autoridades albanesas su invitación y apoyo, así como a todos los interlocutores y socios internacionales su cooperación. También expresamos nuestro reconocimiento al personal de la Oficina del Consejo de Europa en Tirana y a la Secretaría de la Delegación albanesa, quienes facilitaron la organización de todas las reuniones. La delegación concluyó que las elecciones fueron competitivas y se llevaron a cabo de manera profesional. Sin embargo, se desarrollaron en un entorno político altamente polarizado, donde los candidatos no compitieron en igualdad de condiciones, aunque la mayoría sí pudo hacer campaña libremente. Algunos denunciaron intimidaciones. La Administración electoral gestionó el proceso de forma inclusiva y transparente. No obstante, se comentó que el partido gobernante hizo uso generalizado de recursos administrativos, lo que le pudo otorgar cierta ventaja. Se reportaron también presiones sobre votantes, especialmente sobre empleados públicos. Además, la legislación electoral, junto con su interpretación restrictiva, no lograron prevenir ciertas prácticas abusivas. La concentración de la propiedad de los medios de comunicación, la autocensura de los periodistas y el dominio de la cobertura informativa por parte de los dos principales partidos limitaron la pluralidad de fuentes y la capacidad de los votantes para tomar decisiones informadas. Además, el uso intensivo de redes sociales amplificó un discurso de confrontación, sin que existiera una autoridad encargada de supervisar contenidos manipuladores o dañinos. Un avance positivo fue la creación de un nuevo mecanismo de coordinación entre instituciones para investigar y procesar delitos electorales. Sin embargo, es necesario dar seguimiento a su implementación para abordar algunas preocupaciones sobre malas prácticas. El día de las elecciones transcurrió con calma y con transparencia, aunque se observaron deficiencias en la aplicación de los procedimientos en algunos centros de votación. Se registraron también algunos incidentes como intimidación, interferencia de observadores partidistas y violaciones al secreto del voto, debido a la disposición de los centros, el hacinamiento y la falta de accesibilidad. Más de la mitad de los centros observados no eran accesibles para personas con discapacidad. La votación electrónica se desarrolló sin mayores problemas, aunque muchos votantes no estaban familiarizados con el sistema y algunos funcionarios carecían de formación adecuada. La transmisión electrónica de resultados se canceló, optándose por una transmisión manual a nivel de distrito. El recuento fue ordenado, pero no todos los observadores tuvieron acceso completo. Se comunicaron deficiencias procedimentales y desorganización en algunos casos. Un hito importante y destacable fue la introducción del voto desde el extranjero, un avance significativo en la historia democrática de Albania. Esta innovación fue bien recibida, aunque requiere una evaluación para identificar áreas de mejora. La delegación valoró especialmente el trabajo conjunto de la Oficina Nacional de Investigación, la Estructura Especializada contra la Corrupción y el Crimen Organizado, SPAC, la Fiscalía General y la Comisión Electoral Central, quienes coordinaron eficazmente sus esfuerzos para proteger la integridad del proceso electoral. Finalizo con la petición a las autoridades albanesas para que aborden las deficiencias identificadas. Este seguimiento debe realizarse en el marco del diálogo posterior al monitoring de la Asamblea y los programas de cooperación electoral. En particular, recomendamos priorizar las siguientes medidas: aplicar las recomendaciones de la Comisión de Venecia y la ODIHR de forma integral e inclusiva; despolitizar la administración electoral, especialmente en los niveles inferiores; prevenir la compra de votos; separar claramente el partido gobernante del Estado; fomentar la educación política y el compromiso cívico; fortalecer la capacidad del SPAC para combatir eficazmente la corrupción y el crimen organizado; y evaluar el voto desde el extranjero, identificando oportunidades de mejora para futuras elecciones. Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you, Luz. Dear colleagues, in the debate now we'll call first Saskia Kluit on behalf of the Socialists, Greens and Democrats. Saskia, you have the floor. Have you inserted your badge first? Okay, press the button and wait for some seconds.
Sorry,
Just want to remind you that we have to wait for a few seconds. Thank you.
Yes, I think I'm live. Okay. Thank you very much, President. And thank you very much to the Standing Committee and the Bureau for doing a wonderful job. I am very impressed if you read the report about what we all do here. And I think one of the things that Frank already mentioned is We live in extremely dangerous times, times that attack the very fundamentals of what we are doing here. And sometimes you think you are having reasonable arguments to start a dialogue on certain things that you can improve, but before you know it, you are actually collaborating in attacking the fundamentals of your organization. So my group wants to express the full support of the Convention, especially the Court, and the three parts of the Trias Politica, also in our organization. If we want to have a dialogue about the functioning of both the Convention or the Court, it should be done here and not in the press outside. We are the body for that, and we should be very careful to not talk about the fundamentals, but talk about the problems. We have to face that anti-democratic forces are growing in our communities and that we have to stand together to defend them. And the defense should be done by all of us. Then on the content of the work we do, I want to take out three things. One is the tribunal that we worked on. This shows the power of our organization. We do not only talk here in PACE, but we also make steps and we make a difference in the world. And it's very good that Mr. Zelensky will come this week and we will discuss the tribunal further to have it work better. Also, I want to talk about the visit that we made. It was already told like it's in the future, but today it's in the past, the visit that was made by the network of the Ukrainian children to Kiev, because it showed the impact of war on just ordinary citizens and the smallest of them, and how we and our work can improve the lives of small children who are in very dire situations. And I want to thank all our colleagues that make it possible that we can do that kind of visits, because that is so important for our work. And the other one, and that is the top of our humanity. I think this is one of the topics we talk about, but it shows the humanity we show each other here, is the conference on the missing migrants. It was one of the first reports that was done when I came into this organization, and I think it is so wonderful that we show respect to dignity of people, not only when they are alive, but only when they have lost their life, and that we do all we can to reunite families, not only in life, but also in death. So I want to thank the Bureau and the Standing Committee for their work, and I look forward to the debates we have on these topics.
Thank you, Saskia. Christophe Brick, on behalf of the European People's Party. Christophe, you have the floor.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Depuis des mois, des années presque, nous parlons ici des reculs de la démocratie, et bien que le rapport sur les élections en Albanie mentionne que globalement les choses se sont bien passées, si on écoute Madame le rapporteur jusqu'à la fin, on entend pression, crime organisé, achat de vote et un certain nombre de choses qui sont préjudiciables à une élection fonctionnelle. La démocratie se fonde, l'élection c'est le fondement de la démocratie. Une élection libre, équitable dans l'accès aux médias par exemple, ça aussi c'était mentionné par Madame le rapporteur. Évidemment la réalité est toujours un peu plus complexe, mais M. Schwab parlait de dialogue. Un dialogue n'est possible que s'il se fonde sur une réalité claire et observée. Et nous avons l'impression que les rapports ont tendance à un petit peu édulcorer un certain nombre de choses qui ne devraient pas être acceptables, même si elles n'arrivent qu'une fois ou que quelques fois. Pour ces raisons, nous resterons attentifs à la poursuite du dialogue, puisque le pays, l'Albanie, est encore en dialogue, mais nous appelons vraiment à ce que les rapports d'observation d'élections soient un peu plus stricts dans les éléments, les déviations observées par rapport à un système vertueux. Et je crois que dans cette maison qui défend la démocratie et l'état de droit et les droits fondamentaux, on est en droit d'attendre les plus hauts standards quand il s'agit d'élections. Je vous remercie.
Thank you, Christophe. on behalf of the European Conservatives, Patriots and Affiliates, the leader of the group, Mr. Zsolt Nemet. Dear Zsolt, you have the floor.
President, dear colleagues, Mr. Schwab said that there are countries who want to undermine our values. I hope that he did not mean the letter of the 9 prime ministers on the European Convention of Human Rights. I think we need to demonstrate a bit more self-criticism as a consequence of this letter. Me personally, I would like to welcome the letter of the 9 prime ministers, and I'm sure that there are many other prime ministers who would have signed this letter if they had the opportunity and who have joined this initiative. I would like to take note of the fact that the President of the Court is going to participate in our debate. It's a good sign. However, if he decides to participate in the debate, I think it would be wise also to respond to the reflections of the parliamentarians. I don't think that it is an attack against the Council of Europe, neither towards the Court. I believe that it has 2 main reasons, colleagues. One is the problem of the migration. The migration is one of the most serious challenges to Europe, and we haven't found until now the proper answer to this new scale of the phenomenon. And court judgments, yes, tend to block viable solutions which our member states have developed. For example, in my case, Hungary has to pay €1 million every day for its migration policy. Altogether, it is close to €500 million, and in a year's time, it will be over €1 billion. Is it a proportionate decision of the court? Isn't it a punishment, rather, to the migration policy Hungary is having? Secondly, colleagues, I have to underline that we, and definitely we respect the independence of the judiciary. But there is a phenomenon called courts activism. And courts sometimes tend to disregard their written competencies, and not just in the field of migration. Sometimes they act like loose cannons. This judicial activism is a major challenge to democracy. The Council of Europe should become a vehicle of political dialogue to save the Council of Europe, the convention system, and the court itself. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Zsolt. Lucia Plavakova on behalf of ALDE.
Dear colleagues, dear friends, on behalf of ALDE Group, I would like to express our deep concern over the ongoing erosion of human rights standards across Europe. Just last week in Slovakia, the final debate took place on a constitutional amendment with the final vote scheduled for September. This proposed change includes a provision that openly undermines the supremacy of international human rights treaties and obligations. It asserts that the Slovak constitution shall take precedence over EU law and international treaties in matters related to national identity, especially in fundamental areas such as the protection of life and human dignity, private and family life, marriage, parenthood, public morality, personal status, culture, and language. It even extends to healthcare, science, education, and inheritance. As you may see, the provision is so broad that it could cover nearly all rights protected under the Convention. As explicitly stated by the Slovak Ministry of Justice, this means that Slovakia could choose not to comply with the decisions of the European Court of Human Rights when it considers them incompatible with the constitutional provision. Moreover, the amendment includes recognition of only two sexes, male and female, determined strictly biological, effectively banning gender transition. A parental right to exclude children from certain parts of education based on their beliefs, and the definition of parenthood as strictly between a man and a woman, banning same-sex parenthood. Some supporters of this constitutional change have even expressed hope that it will inspire other countries to follow. If that happens, the system of human rights protection in Europe, which we have built and defended for decades, would be gravely endangered. On behalf of our group, I urge you to continue standing up against such attacks on human rights and fundamental freedoms. We must not stay silent. Next month, in July, we will mark 30 years since the Srebrenica genocide. A horrific reminder of what happens when hatred goes unchecked. It always starts with hate, fear, and discrimination, and it ends with lives lost. Let us never forget, and let us never stop defending human rights and human dignity for all, really for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucia. On behalf of the United European Left, the co-chair of the group, Laura Castel. Laura, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. About undermining common values, we would stress several issues that we consider paramount. First, about Gaza, we strongly condemn the genocide that Israel has been carrying out for too long as a systematic assault on the Palestinian civil population that has caused an unbearable deaths. This is a war against children. The destruction of all vital infrastructure, the attack on hospitals, and the obstruction of the entry of humanitarian aid are facts that are considered war crimes and acts of genocide. It is unacceptable that human beings are being massacred, while many of our governments maintain passive attitudes toward grave violations of human rights and international humanitarian law. It is a dehumanization in front of our eyes. The tolerance towards this barbarism is horrifying, and we urge our governments and international institutions to act forcefully and seize this horror, seize this unlawful collective punishment and the crime of using starvation of children as a method of warfare. The international community has to cease its silence and its inaction. Secondly, we have to mention the aggression of Iran by Israel and United States. Indeed, we strongly condemn the Iranian regime, a dictatorship that has killed thousands of its own civilians. We will always stand by oppressed people. But the aggression to Iran is unacceptable, since it's a breach of international law. No authorization from the Security Council has been granted. Even the United States Constitution has been violated, since no authorization of the Congress has been granted. Moreover, the International Atomic Energy Organization has declared there is no evidence of nuclear weapons in Iran. In a nutshell, this has been a clear warning message from the US to the rest of the world. They are disseminating the chaos widespread. They don't care about international law or human beings, and they act like the authoritarian regimes that they intend to destroy. And to conclude, a comment on the elections in Germany. The final results remain pending due to an ongoing review by the Bundestag Committee for the Scrutiny of Elections. We are concerned that the Bundestag role in validating the elections may present a conflict of interest, but also the absence of a time frame for resolving complaints raises questions about the protection of electoral rights. This situation was highlighted in the OSCE reports and falls short of the standards set by the Venice Commission. So, we call on German authorities to complete the electoral process, including the recounts, within a reasonable time frame, to ensure the legitimacy of the elections for the sake of transparency and fair electoral process in line with international democratic standards. Thank you, President.
Thank you. And with Laura, we have concluded the speakers on behalf of the political groups, and now I open the list. We will not have much time because, as I said, we have to continue with the Vigdís Prize Award, but now we have the time to listen to our first speaker, Mr. John Blikra. John.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. One of the main conclusions in the report is that the 2025 parliamentary elections in Albania are very competitive and professionally conducted, but took place in a highly polarized environment, and the contestants did not enjoy a level playing field. Still, candidates were generally able to campaign freely, although some reported facing intimidation. The electoral administration managed the process in an inclusive and transparent manner. But it is a big concern that the ruling party clearly benefited from widespread use of administrative resources during the campaign, creating an undue advantage. There was a high number of negative assessments, largely regarding procedural shortcomings. Therefore, a progress is needed in the broader political culture to strengthen public trust and ensure good governance reaches all levels of society, which starts with election fully complying with European standards. The diaspora vote marks an important milestone in Albania's democratic history. Out-of-country voting, introduced for the first time for this election, enabled Albanians living abroad to contribute to their country's development as citizens. The turnout was 42.2%, compared with 46.2% in the 2021 parliamentary election. This, of course, is a concern. One of the reasons is that young people are disinterested in elections because they feel unrepresented and see little difference between the policies of the existing parties. Although the report describes several challenges related to the elections and the political system in Albania, but Albania is on the right track and well on its way towards EU membership and a political system that promotes democracy and transparency.
Thank you, John. Dear colleagues, we will now have a 2-minute break. Please remain seated, so to allow the award to be cited in the hemicycle and the final candidates to enter the room. Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it is a pleasure to open the awards ceremony of the second edition of the Parliamentary Assembly Vigdís Prize for Women's Empowerment. I was wondering yesterday, why do we award prizes? Looking back in history, I found that prizes speak a language as old as politics. They are society's way of saying, we see you. They illuminate paths, celebrate courage, and validate hope. From ancient laurel wreaths at the Olympic Games to today's ceremonies, prizes have always been more than just recognition. They have been a signal to others. That is the message, follow the light. Some say excellence is an outdated idea in an age of algorithms and mass production. But I believe the opposite. In our noisy, distracted world, excellence matters more than ever. It reminds us that determination, resilience, and integrity still count and still inspire. The Vigdís Prize honors excellence with a purpose, that of empowering women in all their diversity. This means supporting not only gender equality, but also visibility, participation, dignity, and agency. It means amplifying voices that have too often been silenced and recognizing efforts from grassroots to global that lift women up and help them take their rightful place in society. I wish to express my heartfelt gratitude to the Republic of Iceland for its unwavering support, not just financially, but also symbolically, through the powerful legacy of Vigdís Finnbogadóttir, the first woman elected president in the world, a pioneer, a cultural leader, and a visionary. Vigdís has shown us that leadership does not need to shout to be strong. Her life remains a testament to quiet revolution and peaceful courage. We are honored to welcome today Mrs. Edir Edda Jökulsdóttir, Special Envoy for Gender Equality at the Ministry for Foreign Affairs of Iceland. Mrs. Jökulsdóttir, you have the floor.
Dear President of the Assembly, distinguished members of Parliament, dear nominees and colleagues. On behalf of my government, I warmly salute this year's nominees for the Vigdís Prize for the empowerment of women. My thanks also go to the selection panel for spotlighting remarkable projects from different contexts and parts of the world that confront urgent global challenges, from the green transition, gender-based violence, and securing women's place at the decision-making tables. I wish also to commend the Council of Europe, and especially PACE, for initiating this prize during Iceland's recent presidency of the Council. It was both timely and visionary, especially now amid conflicts, rising polarization, and global pushback on gender equality. This is reflected in negative trends such as increased disinformation and gender-based violence, both on and offline. Here, the Istanbul Convention plays a vital role within Europe and beyond. Gender equality is central to Iceland's foreign policy. We have stepped up our work with collaboration with like-minded countries on how to react to the pushback we face. We advocate for women's empowerment at the UN Human Rights Council, where we now are an elected member, as we did here in Strasbourg during our presidency. Our foreign service is hosting events and discussions around the world on gender equality. Tomorrow, I look forward to attending the third event on the role of men and boys in gender equality, hosted by the Nordic Permanent Missions here in Strasbourg. At the domestic level, gender equality and gender mainstreaming remains a priority for my government, with a strong focus on ending gender-based violence and closing the gender pay gap. This year, we also celebrate Women's Year in Iceland, honoring the 50th anniversary of the 1975 women's strike, when 90% of women across the country took the day off in solidarity to fight for their rights. We celebrate how far we've come, and we recall what still needs to be done to achieve full gender equality. As we award this prize for the second time, I find great joy in honoring the legacy of our President Vigdís Prize, and I know she is in Iceland watching us as we speak. She led with courage and conviction, becoming a powerful role model grounded in values we continue to cherish still today, fostering peace, the art of dialogue, language learning, cooperation across cultures, and care for our nature and planet. The Vigdís Prize honors those who empower women and girls and reminds us that their struggle is our collective duty. On behalf of my government, the first one in history, led by 3 female political leaders, I offer all nominees heartfelt congratulations. In times of backlash, and as we celebrate Beijing Plus 30 and the 25th anniversary of UN Security Council Resolution 1325 on women, peace and security, we must remain steadfast in our fight for gender equality. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Jökulsdóttir. I'm really glad and honored to hear that Vigdís is watching us like she did last year, and we want to thank him for what he has done for women in politics, but for politics in general. We can never forget, we will never forget the role that she played in this very important meeting between the leaders of the 2 worlds at that time. I'm talking about Ronald Reagan and Mikhail Gorbachev. Dear friends, before we proceed, I would like to invite you to watch a short video that tells the story of this prize and of the extraordinary woman whose name it bears. Let us see the video.
Má þá ekki orða það sem svo að þú eigir að það eigi að kjósa þig af því að þú sért kona?
Nei, það var ekki að kjósa mig af því ég kona. Það var að kjósa mig af því að ég maður.
29 June 1980. The world watches in surprise and admiration as the citizens of a small country in the far north of Europe elect a woman as head of state for the first time in history.
Mér líður svolítið einkennilega, ég verð að játa það. Þetta hefur verið sérkennileg nótt og já, þetta var svona dálítið lengi að ráðast hvernig myndi fara.
The next day, a huge crowd gathers to cheer Vigdís Finnbogadóttir, the new president of Iceland. Icelandic politics changed forever, and an inspiring new page in world history has been written. In 1974, men made up 96% of all local government representatives. But Icelandic women were beginning to demand a greater say in politics. On United Nations Day, 24th of October 1975, tens of thousands of women stopped work and marched for gender equality. For the first time, the struggle of Icelandic women for equality grabbed the world's attention. The face of Icelandic politics was changed by Vigdís's run for president and subsequent election. Political parties in Iceland realized that women had heaps of votes and that they dared, could, and wanted to take an active part in politics. It was a sea change. After she took office, women stood for election more frequently, and the number of elected women increased. Vigdís was re-elected unopposed in 1984. She oversaw the Reykjavik summit on the 11th and 12th of October 1986 between American President Ronald Reagan and Soviet President Mikhail Gorbachev, which is credited with improving relations between the superpowers and helping to bring the Cold War to an end.
Madam President, your country, Iceland, boasts a history that includes a republican constitution and an assembly as far back as the year 930. Now, that's going back pretty far, even by my way of counting.
During Vigdís's presidency, Iceland's relations with the outside world flourished, mostly in the areas of education, culture, and the sciences. As an active and engaged head of state, she represented the nation abroad and shaped national identity through culture at home. In a memorable speech to the Parliamentary Assembly in Strasbourg in 1991, the Icelandic president pleaded for diversity in Europe and mostly the fight against prejudice.
Diversity
is the great strength of the European heritage, and we must foster this quality and never allow it to divide us. The fight against prejudice is a movement towards peace.
30 years after that speech, in May 2023, ahead of the Reykjavik summit, the Council of Europe Parliamentary Assembly and the Government of Iceland launched the Vigdís Prize for Women's Empowerment. The €60,000 annual prize rewards outstanding initiatives which promote the empowerment of women in all their diversity, with a broad remit covering achievements in gender equality or equal access to participation and decision-making. For the second edition of the award, the shortlisted candidates are the Green Girls Organisation from Cameroon. Founded by Monique Tungia, the organisation provides training to over 12,000 women and girls in solar technology, AI-driven climate solutions, and green entrepreneurship. It creates job opportunities for women by connecting trained women with employment, funding, and networks. It also advocates for gender-inclusive climate policies. Gisèle Pellicot was covertly drugged and raped by her husband over a 9-year period between 2011 and 2020. Her husband also invited dozens of men to rape her while she was unconscious. Mrs. Pellicot's trial and subsequent recognition highlight her impact as a model of courage and advocate against violence towards women. Women of the Sun, founded by Reem Hajjajre, is an independent Palestinian association that creates pathways for women to enter male-dominated sectors like politics, business, and technology. It brings Palestinian and Israeli women together, facilitating dialogue and fostering mutual understanding. 4 decades ago, the election of a 50-year-old, divorced, working single mother and her unprecedented 16-year term in office gave an entire generation of Icelanders the gift of a giant step towards equality. Today, the Vigdís Prize seeks to pay tribute to an iconic president, a courageous woman and an inspiring human being.
Ég held að það besta sem að forseti getur óskað sér ef hann getur fengið þjóðina til þess að þykja eilítið vænt um sig.
I will comment on that later about women in the world. I'm really glad that I see our former president, Tini Cox, to be with us today. We have already seen him on screen, signing on behalf of the Assembly this very important prize. Dear colleagues, more than 100 eligible nominations were submitted for the Vigdís Prize Award. They came from all over the world, diverse in form, scope, and setting, but they shared a common thread. They offered hope. Hope that the world can indeed be more just, more inclusive, and more equal because of the actions, energy, and leadership of women. To each and every one of the nominees, I extend my deepest respect and warmest congratulations. To the 3 shortlisted initiatives who are with us today, I offer special recognition. The Green Girls Organization, represented by Mrs. Monique Zdumgia Afanaoui, Madame Gisèle Pellicot, represented by her lawyer, Maître Stéphane Babonneau. Women of the Sun, represented by Mrs. Reem Al-Hayarech. What you have done, what you are doing, is not just admirable, it's tangible, demanding, and deeply human. You remind us that real change is not born in headlines or hashtags, but in daily choices, quiet persistence, and the decision to act even when the odds seem impossible. Let me also thank the members of the selection panel for their rigorous and thoughtful work, namely Robert Biedron from Poland, Rosa Bjorn Brynjolfsdottir from Iceland, Sandra Costanzi from Austria, Iris Warasi from Albania, Sanam Narangi Anderlini from UK, Finnborg Salome Steinbos-Daughter from Iceland. I am participating, and this is the only option I have to vote in this jury. You have approached, dear colleagues, the task, I'm talking about the jury now, not just with discernment, but with a sense of purpose, and that's what gives this prize its additional weight and meaning. And once again, let us send our thoughts and admiration to Vigdís Finnbogadóttir. Though she cannot be with us in person, as we have heard earlier, she is watching us from Iceland. As you heard in the video, she once said, if the world can be saved, it will be by women. As a man and a politician, I must say this sounds less like a prediction and more like a much-needed correction. So before that corrections leave me permanently in charge of the refreshments, let me at least finish representing the prize. And the winner is the organization Women of the Sun. Congratulations. You may come. Women of the Sun has created opportunities for women to enter fields traditionally dominated by men, including politics, business, and technology. By empowering women also through financial means, they have made sure that they are equipped to support their families and claim their space in public life. The organization has also led initiatives that bring Palestinian and Israeli women together, fostering dialogue, and one of the sponsors for proposing Women of the Sun for the Vigdís Prize was precisely the sister organization in Israel, Women Wage Peace. I believe this is a proof that when women sit together, they do not speak of war, but rather of solutions, dignity, and a better future for their children. So I invite the winner, Madame Rim Al-Hayarech, to come to the rostrum and say a few words.
السادة والسيدات أعضاء جمعية البرلمان الأوروبي، الضيوف الكرام، الأصدقاء الأعزاء.
Ladies and gentlemen, members of the Council of Europe Parliamentary Assembly, honored guests, dear friends.
أقف أمامكم اليوم وأنا أحمل هذا التكريم بكل فخر وتواضع، ليس باسمي فقط، بل باسم آلاف النساء الفلسطينيات اللواتي يرفعن أصواتهن رغم كل التحديات ويقولن لن ننتظر دورنا بل سنصنعه.
I stand before you today carrying this recognition with both pride and humility, not in my name alone, but on behalf of the thousands of Palestinian women who continue to raise their voice despite all challenges, declaring, we will not wait for our turn, we will create it.
هذه الجائزة لا تخصني وحدي، إنها تكريم لكل امرأة فلسطينية قاومت التهميش وأصرت أن تكون قائدة في مجتمعها. لقد رأيت نساء حولهن الألم، حولنا الألم إلى طاقة والإقصاء إلى مبادرة والصمت إلى صوت قوي يطالب بحقوقه.
This award is not mine alone. It's a tribute to every Palestinian woman who has resisted marginalization and insisted on becoming a leader in her community. I have seen women transform pain into power, exclusion into initiative, and silence into a strong voice demanding rights.
نحن لا نطلب الشفقة، نحن نطلب الفرص. لا نريد رمزية، بل نريد مشاركة حقيقية. نحن لسنا ضحايا بحاجة إلى الإنقاذ، نحن قيادات بحاجة للاعتراف والدعم.
We are not asking for sympathy, we are asking for opportunity. We don't want symbolism, we want true inclusion. We are not victims in need of rescue. We are leaders who deserve recognition and support.
نحن النساء نبني الاقتصاد، ندرس الأجيال، نرعى المجتمع ونقود التغيير. نريد تمكيناً حقيقياً يشمل التعليم والتمويل وصناعة القرار.
We, the women, build the economy, educate generations, care for our society, and lead change. We seek genuine empowerment that includes access to education, funding, and decision-making spaces.
هذه الجائزة تقول للعالم: استثمروا في النساء، آمنوا بالنساء، اتبعوا النساء.
This award sends a message to the world. Invest in women, believe in women, follow women.
ولكل فتاة تعتقد أن حلمها أكبر من الواقع أو أن المجتمع لا يسمعها، أقول: أنت لست وحدك، نحن نرتقي معاً يداً بيد.
And to every girl who thinks her dream is too big for her reality or that her voice is unheard, I say, you are not alone. We rise together, hand in hand.
شكراً من القلب على هذا التكريم وعلى تصديقكم بقوة النساء.
Thank you from the bottom of my heart for this recognition and for believing in the power of women.
I would like now to call the two rest nominees to take the floor and give us a side of the speech.
Mais madame, on n'a pas de lumière. Alors comment est-ce qu'on va faire pour étudier la nuit? C'est cette simple question qu'Aminata m'a posée en septembre 2014. Alors que j'étais une jeune directrice de programme travaillant dans le nord du Nigeria, précisément à Kano, qui a conduit à la création de la Green Girls Organization 10 ans plus tard. Distingués invités, mesdames et messieurs, toutes les autorités dû me respecter, bon après-midi à toutes et à tous. Dès l'instant où nous avons appris que la Green Girls Organization était finaliste du prix Vigdís 2025, nous avons su que le monde allait en savoir davantage sur notre travail, sur son caractère innovant et sur notre engagement en tant que seule entreprise sociale panafricaine dans le secteur de l'énergie qui utilise l'intelligence artificielle pour identifier les problèmes spécifiques que rencontrent les femmes et les filles dans les zones rurales africaines en matière d'énergie propre et qui transforme ces données collectées via notre algorithme en solutions concrètes. Des installations solaires pour l'électricité et des installations de biogaz pour une cuisson propre. Au cœur de notre travail, 3 mots nous définissent et guident chacune de nos actions: innovation, impact et durabilité. C'est ce qui nous pousse à aller plus loin. Nous ne nous contentons pas de fournir de l'énergie propre. Nous formons aussi ces femmes et ces filles aux compétences éco-entrepreneuriales pour qu'elles deviennent financièrement autonomes grâce à la vente de lampes solaires qu'elles apprennent à assembler ou encore grâce à la vente d'engrais organiques, un sous-produit issu des biodigesteurs. Nous leur montrons comment le collecter, le conditionner et nous créons des débouchés pour le vendre. À l'Assemblée du Conseil de l'Europe, merci. Merci de nous avoir vus. Merci de nous avoir donné cette plateforme pour que le monde entier découvre un travail qui est réplicable, évolutif, et donc l'impact traverse aujourd'hui 7 pays africains et 78 communautés rurales, touchant la vie de plus de 15 000 femmes et filles, avec plus de 3 500 installations solaires fournissant de l'électricité et 3 100 installations de biogaz assurant une cuisson propre. À travers des organisations comme le Conseil de l'Europe et des et des prix tels que celui de Vigdís, des femmes comme moi qui ont fait de cette cause leur mission de vie, se sentent reconnues, entendues et soutenues. Pour cela, je vous dis merci. Merci de voir notre combat. Merci de reconnaître notre travail. Le chemin est encore long et tant reste à faire. Mais soyons en assurés, dans 10 ans encore, l'impact de Green Girls Organization continuera de résonner sur tout le continent africain. Je vous remercie.
Je vous remercie. Gisèle Pellicot aurait souhaité être présente aujourd'hui parmi vous afin de pouvoir vous parler elle-même de son combat, qui est actuellement encore dans une phase judiciaire qui n'est pas encore terminée, ce qui explique son absence devant votre Assemblée. Ce combat, elle ne l'a pas choisi, mais elle a assumé avec une détermination totale lorsqu'il y a moins d'1 an, elle a soudainement été poussée dans la lumière. Parce que là où les femmes sont victimes de violences, il ne peut y avoir de liberté quelle qu'elle soit. Les violences sexuelles, dont le viol est l'expression la plus brutale, constituent la négation ultime de la liberté des femmes, celle qui leur arrache ce qui fait l'essence même de leur humanité, le droit au respect de l'intégrité de leur corps en toutes circonstances. Quand une femme perd cette liberté, elle perd une part de son humanité et se retrouve ravalée au rang d'objet. À chacune des centaines d'agressions qui lui ont été imposées pendant une dizaine d'années, Gisèle Pellicot a subi le vol de sa liberté et aussi celui d'une part de son humanité. Face à cette négation vertigineuse de ses droits fondamentaux, Gisèle Pellicot a fait le choix de relever la tête et de reprendre la liberté qui lui avait été dérobée. Le message que Gisèle Pellicot m'a fait l'honneur de me demander de porter dans cette enceinte aujourd'hui s'adresse à toutes les femmes qui ont vécu cette épreuve ou qui auront malheureusement à la vivre dans le futur. À ces femmes, Gisèle Pellicot souhaite dire les mots suivants. Je souhaite que vous sachiez que nous disposons toutes en nous des ressources que nous ne soupçonnons pas, qui se révèlent parfois seulement lorsque nous sommes confrontés à des épreuves qui nous semblent insurmontables. Si vous êtes isolés, sachez que vous n'êtes pas seuls pour autant, car notre nombre se compte en dizaines et peut-être même en centaines de millions. N'acceptez jamais qu'on vous dérobe votre liberté, n'acceptez jamais qu'on vous arrache votre humanité. Et surtout, n'ayez jamais honte de ce qui vous a été imposé par la force. Gisèle Pellicot a interpellé avec puissance le monde entier sur la gravité extrême du viol, mais aussi sur le courage tout aussi extrême des femmes qui y font face. Mais le courage individuel n'est pas suffisant pour que les violences sexuelles intègrent le passé de notre histoire commune. Pour que cette éradication devienne une réalité, il faut que le regard que la société porte sur les victimes et sur les auteurs de violences sexuelles évolue. Membres du jury, en invitant aujourd'hui Gisèle Pellicot dans cette enceinte, vous avez apporté une pierre à cet édifice commun afin que le regard change, que la honte change de camp, et pour cela, Gisèle Pellicot vous remercie.
So, dear colleagues, the sitting is adjourned. 4:30, we will start our evening works. Thank you.
This is yours. Ναι, φώναξε τους όλους μαζί.